Hey guys, so today we're trying the Personna Israeli Red again. 10th or 11th shave with that. It's doing great. I used it with the Fatip Gentile yesterday, the closed comb, and it was marvelous. Wonderful shave. Close shave, but really comfortable. Now today could be the opposite because we're using an old type, a vintage Gillette old type, and I don't think it's the thick cap. I think it's the thin cap. And sometimes this razor can be a little strong, a little aggressive. Sometimes it's not. So we'll just see how everything works out. A few days ago, I used this same brush. This is the Bully Boy from Alpha and a collaborative work with Alpha, who did the handle, and Thader, who did the two-band knot. And we got him wet for a few minutes before the shave, and now I'm going to put him back in water because I want his two-band bristles, those tips to soften. The tips are actually pretty comfy in use. It's the stiffness of the bristles, the backbone there, that keeps a lot of the presence of the brush in the center, keeps it from splaying out quite as much as I might like. But it is kind of a young knot, and so that could change over time. It is a big handle. The T400, my friend Tim online, I believe he was the one that was saying he bought the T400 and bought some of their ferrules. You can screw and unscrew the different ferrules, which is cool because then you could put different knots in different ferrules and have the same handle, so that's pretty cool. This is a thicker version of that, similar design. All right, and the soap is from Declaration Grooming. It's Milksteak, and it's Massacre of the Innocents. It's patterned after the, as you might be able to guess, the Herod scent. Oh, and it's just warm, rich, savory. There's a whole lot going on in the scent. Milksteak is not my favorite Declaration Grooming base, but it's very good. If your soap has a coloring like this, then be careful about your brush. It could alter the color of your brush slightly depending on what ingredients are used in the soap, and so maybe use a brush you don't care about as much until you find out if it's actually going to change the color. Don't use a nice one if you're really into keeping those brushes looking pristine. All right, so let's go ahead and put the blade on. Personna, and it says platinum chrome, made in Israel. I need to do a test against this one with my other one that says platinum chrome and just see if they're the same. So this is one of the early razors from Gillette, and the base plate here is just not much to it. Curved steel, brass actually, but if you wanted to take the part of a pipe, I've seen it done on YouTube, and cut it out and shape it like this, you could potentially make your own base plate, right? So we're going to put the blade on. And this definitely can get misaligned. It doesn't line up exactly, and so you do want to check it. In a sense, that's cool, because what if you liked one side more aggressive than the other side? Maybe use one side to take down that first pass, and then the other side to tweak on the second and third pass. Nice, comfy type arrangement. So, it doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? To have a movable blade. Okay, I'm gonna get my face wet now, and then we can lather. We can load up the brush with the soap. All right, I was eating some cereal in my office this morning, and it was time to, as I shake out the water from the brush, a lot of it, not all of it, and and I left a cereal bowl in my office, and it kind of got a little grungy. And so I put some hot water in it here in my sink to let it start soaking so that it can easily be cleaned out. And I went ahead and let the warm water run. And so I've got access to hot water here at the beginning of the shave that I usually don't like to wait for. And so why don't we just see if anything is different. I've used warm water to soak my brush in. Let's just see how everything goes. 35, and we'll do a 30-second load. So we'll go to 05. And 5 more seconds. All right, very good. I'm sure I have plenty of good soap on my brush. Oh man, the scent. Whew, boy, that is sick. A lot of stuff going on. Not light notes that make for a contemporary cologne. These are heavier notes. Bold, but not bold as in pungent, bold as in with gravitas, if I can put it that way. Okay, so just with the water that was in the brush, we've kind of got to this point, and we can go ahead and start adding. It doesn't look like anything's going to change. Now look at the consistency. Okay, you notice the streams of the kind of veins and ridges. Well, we are definitely going to want those to disappear as we get the lather to a creamy and well hydrated state. And I'm pulling from the warm water, but who knows how long that warm water will keep warm, you know? So I don't know how that'll translate once I actually get it to my face. We'll find out. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my soap puck. Get the soap off the sides so that it doesn't bog down when I try to, or bind when I try to screw the lid on. Okay, now let's get back to this, and we'll go ahead and tilt you down. Could the hot water, could the warm water soften and relax the bristles? You know, could that be a advantageous thing that I might enjoy? Who knows? That's 3 teaspoons in, and I'm going to make sure that I give this a good mix. Get it consistent before I add any more water, because this Milksteak base has a lot of oils and butters and moisturizing type items that make it so I don't need to add quite as much water as with some other soaps. And it also stays kind of low and gluey instead of puffing up like some of the soaps, still some contemporary soaps, but especially soaps of years past. Well, to be honest, the warmth here almost makes me want to eat it, because the types of scents in here, it's almost like a good dessert or something. And then it's warm, and it makes me feel like I'm holding food. And see, it has changed and really homogenized. Those veins, like you saw before, aren't really there. Everything is softened up. Look at this bottom part, how, now notice it is standing up on its own. It's not sliding around very much. And I don't think we want this soap base to slide around too much. I think that might mean that it's a little too wet. This one needs to stay a little bit thicker, at least for the way I like it. Now, I do think I'll add one more half teaspoon. We'll add and mix that in, and then we'll try this base out. Yeah, look at that. That is nice. That is, I'll bet that might be just right. We'll try it and see. Get my face wet now. So without trying to save the heat by maybe filling up my sink full of hot water so that the bowl could be in it, or pulling directly from a tub of hot water, this is as close as I'm going to get to a hot shave. And it's a little warmer than room temperature, which I kind of expected. By the time I mixed and added water and all that, I kind of expected it to come down from a warm temperature to a more lukewarm one. The brush doesn't really feel all that great. Doesn't really feel like the tips are too soft. Seems like it's splaying okay. It's a little difficult to keep in splay. I mean, I'm having to work a little bit, not too bad. And that's kind of encouraging, because as the knot goes on and ages and relaxes a little bit, then that means if it's a little bit bad now, then that means it might settle into a really good place. I think I am going to add a little bit of water to this. It kind of feels a little pasty. One day shave, 1 day of growth is what we're shaving off today. And now here at this location, I do have hard water. I'm sure the tips will probably soften over time. I don't think I've used this brush too much, maybe 6 or 8 times. Yeah, the smell is fantastic, and it could be overwhelming if this were a stronger scent, but it's not. So you get to really enjoy it and kind of savor it without it knocking you over. Now here we go with the Israeli Red in an old type. As you can see, there's not a lot of bend in the blade there. Yesterday was the Fatip, and there is more bend with that one. So let's just see. The angle that we use might not be a typical angle here. We might have to have a more narrow blade angle or a more open handle angle, whichever way you like to phrase it. Just see what happens. Now also, the good thing is this razor is an inexpensive one to try. These are kind of a dime a dozen on eBay. Sometimes you could get 5 of them for $15 or something like that, you know. Or get an assortment that has some super speeds and an old type and maybe an injector razor, all for $20. And I'm not getting any tugging. It's working very well. So this is a wonderful combination. I do feel that maybe I should be careful. I feel like if I make a mistake in technique, it could give me some irritation, maybe a little tiny nick or something like that. It is the feeling I get, but it's locking down the blade really nicely, holding it really close to the edge of the blade, and so you're not hearing it give me too much audio. And that open angle, the more open handle angle, seems to be a good approach. I do believe that the lather needs a little bit more hydration. So I added a little bit of water. We're up to a total of 4.5 teaspoons of water added to the lather here. The lather worked well, okay, during the shave, but I could kind of see it wasn't giving me the residual slickness that I wanted. It was a little on the pasty side. And this is much better. Now this old type might be giving me some irritation, but it's something that's slowly building up rather than being very evident at the time of shaving. We'll just have to see if that's what happens. I'm going to try to remember to keep my handle very open. Kind of riding the cap is another way to say that, where we're touching the cap with more pressure than the open comb receives. And this is a nice inexpensive razor if you guys want to give it a try. When I first started this type of shaving, I did get a hold of an old type, and it did not really do well for me. My technique was not good enough, I think. Blade seems to be doing very well, as long as we come to the end of the shave without too much irritation. I'm picking up just a little bit of tenderness, but we'll see. I think I'll make sure I do kind of a cooler water rinse instead of lukewarm. It'll probably help soothe a little bit of the slight tenderness in my neck area. And cool water is definitely available, because this may be North Carolina, but it is still cold in the winter. And the tap water is chilly. So let's go for the third pass here. I may have gotten such a great shave that I don't need to do a third pass, and in which case I could be risking a little irritation or tenderness, but let's just do it anyway and see what happens. See, there it is, kind of a buttery, oily feeling left behind. I actually prefer something more like Stirling, where it's more of a slickness left behind, instead of it being quite almost like a slow kind of lubrication is what I have. Kind of feel like I shouldn't. Yeah, I've got a little bit of tenderness, razor, generated by the razor. So this is an arrangement that does kind of sneak up on me in terms of the slight bit of irritation, and it is enough to where I could use it every day if I wanted to. I don't think it's enough to start to compound and become a problem, but it's not one that makes me enjoy shaving. Oh man, the scent on this is just fantastic. Now, when I have this type of irritation, sometimes I find that it goes two ways. That that bit that causes me to hold back and be wary, like around this kind of area, could mean I don't get a good cut there. I don't shave well there because I'm afraid that it's going to really get me. It's going to just really give me some razor rash, maybe even a nick or something like that. And it just doesn't feel great. And so I back off maybe on my technique. Or that irritation is because the first two passes went really well. And so the other side could be that I get a great shave with just that little bit of irritation to deal with. And so it's kind of an even exchange. You know, you may have to deal with some tenderness, but you got an amazing shave because after all, it was a little bit more aggressive and efficient than it usually is. So we'll see if this shave falls into one of those two categories. Well, this shave kind of fell into the first category I described, where I just kind of got an average cut here. It wasn't super efficient. I think it's because I was just afraid to keep my technique solid. Didn't want to overrun the area, that sort of thing, because it was starting to build up with irritation. Now, I've got some Tuscany here from Stirling, and it's an alcohol-based aftershave. And sometimes that's not a good idea when I have just generated a little bit of irritation, but just for grins, why not? Why don't we try it? Definitely some more stinging than I usually get. So this combination did really kind of dig into my skin a little bit, even though it didn't really feel like it was doing it at the time. Definitely was feeling that irritation by the third pass. All right, so sometimes with Stirling I will develop a little bit of redness in certain areas. I guess it's because of the higher alcohol content. I don't usually respond that way to other aftershaves. It could be that they have some powerful scent ingredients that, there may be some allergy or something like that. Now already, and you might be able to see that redness, but it doesn't really feel bad at all. Matter of fact, the stinging's all gone away now. I don't really feel too much tenderness, that kind of thing. And that Tuscany is so interesting. The soap and the balm kind of smell very similar, but the cologne, the EDP that they put out is nice, but it's different. There's a different part of it. The cypress comes out a little bit more, I think. And then this is kind of between those two. The aftershave here is somewhere in between that spectrum. Just a nice, easygoing shave type scent with the Tuscany. It is nice to go to sleep to because it doesn't interfere with anything. It's not all that zesty, but it's interesting. It's not plain. So it is a scent that I guess wasn't very popular with Stirling. I believe they still have this aftershave on their clearance page, so it must be a slow mover. But obviously it is a slow mover because they phased it out, so they weren't selling enough of it. I guess maybe one of the ingredients became expensive, but I bet it just wasn't all that popular. But years ago, they sent me, Stirling, with one of my orders, a little balm sample of Tuscany. And I tried it, and for some reason, I just really liked it. And I kept going back to it. And so I went ahead and ordered the balm. And so I've got a couple of those balms, and I'm really glad to have those. All right, well, the 30 seconds of loading is pretty close to what I like. I like to have some extra. This is probably, 2 passes extra. I don't usually need quite that much extra. So I could reduce it down if I wanted to. Maybe 25 seconds or 20 seconds perhaps. And you can see it's still not super liquidy. It's still not as elastic as many of the bases that I work with. But this one, as I said, needs to run just a little drier than usual. So it looks like, as I said, 4.5 teaspoons of water. I might try 5 teaspoons of water next time. maybe even a touch more if I do the 30 seconds of loading. Face is feeling pretty good. Almost all that irritation is gone away. I feel just a little bit of irritation over here, just a tiny bit, but I'm sure that'll be gone too. So I learned in this shave that simply filling my brush soaking cup with warm water and using that to add water to via the syringe to my lather, that didn't keep it warm enough to really change my shave experience very much. And so if I do ever want to get a hot water shave, I'll need to employ, something else. Then this kind of brush would be good for that hot water shave, because badgers, that's one of the strengths of these badger brushes, because they have a lot of mass. The synthetics tend to lose heat, and the borers don't have quite the density to carry a lot of that heat, and so badgers are one of the best ways to go if you like a warm shave, is what I've been told and read about. And from my current eyeballs, I'm not really seeing any discoloration. I'm not seeing that it looks, a nice pleasant color. So if it changed the color of the bristles, I don't know that it did much, and I'm fine with that. So there we go. I did not detect any extra openness due to the warm water in terms of the backbone of the brush. Didn't seem to change too much, so that was something I was watching as well. So am I mad at this razor for giving me a little bit of irritation? No, because I kind of expected it. It has done that before with certain blades, and this blade has proven during my use with it to be one that can sometimes be a little on the aggressive side with certain razors, and I kind of expected that to be the case here, and I was pretty much right. But it's a great little razor, wonderful piece of history. These were early on in the DE days, and they're old razors, and often the corner teeth will be bent, because if it's dropped, then those are often the ones that will impact first and will receive a lot of the brunt of the damage. This one, fortunately, pretty straight. Really nice condition, but it's definitely one where I need to watch what blades I use in it if it's going to be comfortable for me. And so the Israeli Red is not one of those, for me at least. And so I do get questions often like, what are some really sharp blades? What are some smooth blades? It's all relative. That's all subjective. You just kind of have to try them for yourself, and that can vary per razor. So unfortunately, it's not an easy answer to provide when I don't have your face. Even your shaving technique can impact that. Your lathering technique, if you like your lathers more dry, more thick than I like mine, that can make a difference with how the razors feel to you. I know that I can shave the same, and if I make up a drier lather, I don't get as nice of a comfortable feeling. I don't think it's protecting me as well, protecting my skin, and so a little bit more of the irritation is translated to my skin. If I hydrate a good soap really well, and instead, then I get a better shave anyway. So you just kind of have to get a sampler and try that out. I have gotten some off of Amazon. I have seen some on eBay. I recommend the ones from Maggard Razors, especially tryablade.com. I like that top 10 sampler if you're curious about that. And if it's still up there, and if it's still one blade of each kind, then what I encourage you to do, they're inexpensive. Order 2 or 3 of them, so you get 2 or 3 blades of each of the top 10, because odds are those blades are going to serve you well in many cases, because if they're the top 10, then that means they work well for a lot of people. And so odds are they're going to be, most of those blades should perform for you pretty well. And that's my favorite place to get my assortments. When I do order assortments from Amazon or eBay, I look at the blades provided, And if it's a one-off blade that I'm really not gonna be able to access, if I can't order 100 of it or something like that, then that's not as much help to me. And so I will not order that type of assortment. And there are premium blades like Feather and Kai, Balzano, and some of those are not going to be, are often not going to be in an assortment. And so some assortments are made of the cheapest blades out there. And so that way they can provide you with maybe more blades, and that could be attractive to people. And why not try one of those if you want? But be aware that they do sometimes leave out those premium blades like the Gillette Platinum and those kinds. They, and the Feather especially, they leave those out to keep their cost down, and they are hoping that you don't notice that the good stuff's not in there. And I say the good stuff, but I mean more expensive stuff, because after all, it's all subjective. Feathers might not be a great blade for you. Kais may not be a great blade for you, and so in that case, you're spared the need to spend more money on those blades. Pretty cool, huh? All right. Well, there we go. I am really enjoying this. The Tuscany, it does seem like it's a nice transition from the Massacre of the Innocents. It's got a similar attitude. It's very different, but there are some similarities. The way it makes me feel is kind of similar. And so I think it's working well. Pretty cool. Didn't see that coming. And face feels fine. Good there. Time to go to bed. All right, guys. Well, this is Sugar Daddy Shaves, and I really hope that there's something in this shave that's going to help you guys out. You take care, and we'll see you next time.